I think I'm gonna say the obvious things and repeat a lot of what was said before, so I'll be quite fast, and then we can build up on it on the group discussions. But I'm going to go back at the beginning with the archipelago analogy that I heard a couple times appear here and there. Um, Talk a little bit about this analogy we have and how charting courses and etc. And I'll end with a two things from publicity from the subgroups. So we already have this thing in mind of people getting trained either in some career somewhere, like could be physics, biology, software engineering, things like that. And we have this idea of islands and bridges being built between them, or courses being plotted. And somehow each of us started in one of these islands, let's say, and started visiting the other islands, and at some point we say, yeah, we are a bioimage analyst. It's not really clear to me how that happens, but also I would like to point out how do we start designing these courses, because I think one really has to take into account from which island to which other island we're trying to go, right? Because it's not the same organizing a course for somebody that knows biology and that's an expert there. And usually we find these courses, right? This from samples to knowledge or from samples to images, that you say, yeah, it's you start preparing a sample, you start going into a bit of a microscopy here in physics, and then you end up with image analysis. And here it's, well, Esteban Milieta is working a lot in how many charted courses are there. So there is a database of courses, and it's nice. It would be nice to also know from where to where each of these courses are going. Because we've also had the opposite discussion. I've heard a couple of people from software engineering that say, yeah, I'm not really attracted to the current microscopy courses because they don't really, I mean, you start the course with a sample that they're not really used to dealing with, and then you go into a whole bunch of theory of optics that it's also not very nice. But if you would prepare a similar course going in the other direction, for example, you can simulate the PSF, you can understand how the camera generates a photon. So that means you're going from the digital version in the other direction. I think that would be way more attractive for people from software engineering, for example. And we also started having this sort of towns or also small islands appearing here and there about, well, microscopy, molecular. I already said a couple of these examples. But my follow-up question would be, how many of these little towns should you visit until you can call yourself a bioimage analyst? Like, do you really need to understand image generation to call yourself a bioimage analyst? And this is kind of where it took me a lot of time to understand this and say, okay, yeah, I'm doing bioimage analysis. But also I think it's a recurring discussion with some of my colleagues, for example, like, do you really need to understand all of the concepts or just touch upon them a couple times, and that's okay. Yeah, so this will also come up in the group discussion afterwards. And last but not least, well, there's a develop model training school that recently started. That's, again, I'll repeat it. Rocco is, I mean, you can get in touch with Rocco. We have this meeting with Teresa and me. Yeah, the goal is to build this model training schools, have something similar to what Robert just presented. So yeah, no duplicate effort. So I won't say that again. Yeah, thank you very much.